program is brought to you by P. Murphy and Associates, successfully providing IT professionals to Southern California businesses.
Hi, this is Marlene Gibb with What Do You Do? And today's guest is Dennis Wright. And Dennis, what do you do?
I am a volunteer for the SCORE organization.
Okay, so what is SCORE? Tell me about SCORE.
SCORE is a nonprofit organization that was founded back in 1964. And it was created through an act of Congress. It's an SBA resource partner. And what we do is mentor small business owners and those who aspire to be free of charge. And we do that through engagement with volunteers such as myself, folks that are retired, some of whom though are still working, and we volunteers devote our time and energy to helping those that are either in business or aspire to be, and we use our experience and the skills we learned over the years that we were in business to accomplish that.
What did you do prior to this?
I spent about 30 years with a consumer finance company, and most of those 30 years were devoted to sales roles and sales management. And then at the conclusion of that career, I spent a couple of years in facilities management, which really launched career number 2. The subsequent, probably 13, 14 years were basically with 2 organizations. There I was in charge of procurement and corporate real estate. So essentially 2 careers, one in a sales role and one in a procurement role. So I've sat on both sides of the sales table.
So why did you get involved with SCORE? I mean, you're retired. What?
Well, I'll give you a perfectly honest answer.
Okay, tell me the truth.
After retiring, and I don't know, having spent quite a few years getting up in the wee hours of the morning to travel into downtown Los Angeles, I was still, after retirement, getting up in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah.
And one day, probably 6 months after retirement, I was wrestling with the decision, okay, today, what am I going to do? Mow the lawn or play golf? And then I thought to myself, if this is the most important decision I've got to make today, something's wrong. Maybe I'm not right for retirement. So I started exploring on the internet what a retired person might want to do or could do to use their past experience to contribute in some way, to give back. And through, I think it was the AARP website, I found SCORE. And it just seemed like a good fit. And so I applied and I was accepted. I went through the training program and became a SCORE volunteer.
So what's the training program like? In case anybody in the audience has gone through what you've gone through, what's the training about?
Well, after you go through the acceptance process, where you submit a resume and you go through a few interviews, and you're accepted as a...
Sounds like you're going for another job.
I guess that's the best way to describe it.
Right.
You're accepted as a provisional member. And then within a 90-day window of time, you're expected to complete certain online training courses. And then you sit in with SCORE volunteers when they're meeting and working with business owners and those who aspire to be, and observe how they use what you have just learned in these various training modules. So you go through the online training, and then you see how that training is put to use in a practical sense in terms of meeting with business owners and conducting workshops. We do workshops as well as one-to-one mentoring. SCORE's role is to both mentor and educate business owners and those who aspire to be. And as I said, that's done through both mentoring and workshops. So you get online training, and then you get hands-on training, and at the completion of that training, then you become...
90 days?
Well, you're supposed to complete it within 90 days.
Okay.
And at the completion of that training, then you go from a provisional status to a full membership status. But you're still learning.
Well, yeah, because you're meeting all kinds of business.
Absolutely.
Like I interview entrepreneurs, right? So I learn so much about their businesses, why they chose the businesses. That's what we really talk about. That is congruent with who they are. Because
Right.
sometimes if it's not congruent, you're going to hate what you're doing. And that's not what you started a business for, right?
That's right.
So-
Absolutely.
So go on with your story.
Well, so I joined SCORE, gosh sakes, that was about 7.5 years ago. And I started by mentoring at our main facility in Orange County. And over a period of time, a short period of time, the opportunity to mentor within the city where I live, down in Orange County, materialized. And I obviously took that. After driving to Los Angeles every day for 8 years, driving maybe 2 or 3 miles to get to where I was meeting with business owners was sort of a blessing. And so I did that, and then I began to participate in the workshop program, and then I had an opportunity to become engaged with the advisory board program and begin to manage that group for the Orange County chapter.
Now, what's the advisory board?
The advisory board is a group of SCORE volunteers, and again, this is out of Orange County, that are willing to get in their car, travel to the owner's place of business, and get more deeply engaged, and essentially become, I don't want to say a board of directors, because a board of directors actually runs the company, and the CEO reports to the board. And the advisory board, or by definition, an advisory board is providing advice. And whether the business owner chooses to take that advice or not, it's up to the business owner. Because at the end of the day, it's their business. So the advisory board would be made up of a team of SCORE volunteers, each of which would have a specific skill that comes through experience. And so a team might be made up of a marketing expert, a sales expert, an operational expert, a human resources expert.
A lawyer.
And that team first meets with that business owner individually,
Okay.
and then later, based on how the owner feels about it, collectively, or there might be subsequent meetings where 1 or 2 of the volunteers get together with that business owner. But that core group of volunteers is available to that business owner ongoing. So it's kind of like a board of directors, but not, because it is the owner's business, and all that group is doing is providing suggestions, advice.
Well, let's say you have a board of directors and they come to your business, and you like 4 of them, maybe 5 of them come, and you like 4, but there's one you don't want to work with. How do you handle that?
Well, because we're all volunteers and we're doing this because
Yeah,
we
right.
want to, and we really like what we're doing. As when I was responsible for the advisory board program, that is, I don't know, kind of a touchy situation. But the reality is that because we're doing this, we're not paid for it, we're not chasing after promotion. If a business owner feels that it's not really a good fit, I think.
Yeah, like sometimes you like 4 or 5, there's,
Yeah.
and then you think, I'm not going to get along with the one who's the accountant or the lawyer, whatever, and
I think people, when it's explained in that way, get over it pretty quickly. And in the Orange County chapter, there's about 115 members. In the Los Angeles chapter, which is headquartered in Glendale, there's probably 75 or 85 volunteers. Inland Empire, 50. In the East San Gabriel Valley now, probably 20, 22. So somewhere within the collective membership of these particular chapters, we can find somebody to help a business owner.
Okay.
And while we might first deal with it from a geographical issue, meaning the business owner is in the East San Gabriel Valley, so we offer up an East San Gabriel Valley volunteer. If within the East San Gabriel Valley, let's say that there is nobody that has sufficient experience in the area where this business owner needs help, we have all these other volunteers from the other chapters from which to pick. So we can refer that client to a volunteer in another chapter. So tremendous opportunity to be able to help folks, regardless of what the challenge or opportunity they might be facing.
Well, Orange County sounds like the biggest one that you have and the most active.
Correct. But let me just say that while Orange County is the largest and the most active, and by the way, the most award-winning chapter in the history of SCORE.
Oh, really? Really?
It was the chapter of the year 4 times out of the last 16 or 17 years, which no other chapter in the United States, and this dates back to 1964 when SCORE was created, no other chapter has achieved that level of performance. But between Orange County, Los Angeles, and the Inland Empire chapter, last fiscal year, they have met with nearly 11,000 business owners and would-be entrepreneurs. Now, some of those meetings have, there's been 2 or 3 or 4 meetings with the same client, but they've done about 10,000 to 11,000 one-on-one sessions. In addition, they've done quite a number of them online as well. But the real measure of performance, the real measure of whether or not we're making an impact, is something that actually comes, the numbers anyway, come from a study that's done by PricewaterhouseCoopers each year. So each year, PricewaterhouseCoopers, at least the last few years, PwC has been the company that's done this. They reach out to the folks that have taken advantage of SCORE services in the last year, and they ask them a series of questions. But basically what they're trying to determine is, has SCORE helped you? And has SCORE helped you grow your business? And by grow your business, they're very focused on creating jobs. So last year, collectively, now this was before the East San Gabriel Valley chapter was started, which was October 1 of last year. So the 3 chapters, Los Angeles, the Inland Empire, and Orange County, were credited with, or the clients that were interviewed, and then that information is extrapolated, and it was determined that that those 3 chapters played a role in helping to start nearly 2,600 new businesses.
Really?
2,600 new businesses in fiscal 15. In addition to that, those 3 chapters collectively were given credit for, and when I say given credit by the business owners for having created almost 5,100 new jobs.
That's a lot.
And when you stop and think about it, the volunteers that are doing this are not being paid. They're doing this just for the love of doing it. SCORE has 320 chapters across the United States, roughly. 11,000 volunteers that are doing this just for the love of doing it. We only have about 19 paid employees, and those are the folks back in Washington, D.C., or actually in Herndon, Virginia, which is a suburb.
Right.
Those 19 folks create national programs, manage our digital network.
That's a lot.
And spend a fair amount of time on Capitol Hill sharing with Congress the contribution that we're making.
Are you proud of that? I mean, lots of times I think
I'm very proud of that.
I think when we get older, it's important for us to give back. I mean, there's that whole sense of you want to give back before you want. I think as we grow older, we have the legacy. We want to leave a legacy.
Right. Well, I'm often asked by business owners and those who aspire to be, why do you do this? Well, in my case, the alternative was mow the lawn or play golf, right?
Well, you could have found something else.
I'm just kidding. I had an opportunity. SCORE, I was the chapter chairman for the Orange County chapter for a couple of years, fiscal 12 and 13. And in fiscal 14, the Orange County chapter was selected as chapter of the year. And that was based on fiscal 13 results. So I had an opportunity to go back to Washington, D.C., representing the Orange County chapter. And during that couple of days that I was back there participating in various events, I was asked to be part of a panel discussion that was hosted by the U.S. Small Business Administration, the SBA. And the discussion was all about educating entrepreneurs. And it was attended by probably 150 business owners that were back there to receive an award from the SBA for various things. And one of the questions that was posed to the panel, and I was there representing SCORE, somebody was there from the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, and there was an individual there from the Women Business Centers of America. The three of us were the panelists. One of the questions that was offered up by the audience was, why does a business owner need somebody like you folks when the internet is so full of information? And when it came time for me to answer that question, my response to it was that yes, the internet is full of information, but one, you have no idea really who's posting this information,
Exactly, yeah.
what kind of experience they have.
Exactly.
But the bigger
Exactly.
issue is that it's information. It's not education. The reality is that you, in most cases, won't know how, if you take that information off the internet and begin using that strategy or that process in your business, you're not going to know exactly what it's going to do for you, both positively and perhaps negatively, unless you can actually talk to somebody who's been there, done that, somebody that has experience with that process or may have had experience with that process in the past and can share with you willingly and at no cost how it might affect your business.
To give an
And because
example.
that's free, why wouldn't you want to take advantage of it?
Well, I know that, but give an example. I mean, just give an example of what you've been doing with somebody.
Well, I can,
Yes.
and not necessarily me. I'll just talk about a really terrific example. There's a woman who had a personal need, and it dealt with having a child and not wanting to change what she and her husband enjoyed doing together. And so she decided to create a portable bed, I guess for lack of a better term, so that they could take their child with them when they would leave the home to do whatever, what they enjoyed doing together, going to a restaurant or going to a park or whatever. So she created this product, snipping fabric and foam rubber on her living room floor. Well, over a period of, I guess, probably 4.5 years, she met with 10, 12 SCORE volunteers, probably 75, 80 times
Wow.
for free. That business now is very successful. She sells that product in Bye Bye Baby stores, in Target, online through Amazon. And I mean, we're talking a very successful business. This all started out of a personal need
Right.
Remember the old sayings, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
Here was a case where she decided that I need this for myself, and then the more people that saw it, the more people said, the greater the desire to make this available to other folks. That desire just grew, and she saw an opportunity to start a business, and she took advantage of it. But she came to SCORE.
Did she get the money from SCORE? I mean, did you go through all of it with her? The whole process from the time she started to she had to ask for extra money, right? Once she got the template.
Yeah, without actually going back into her history and
Right.
sharing details that I can't. Our relationship with all of our clients is confidential.
Yeah.
But
I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about if you have a prototype and you worked
Mm-hmm.
with this lady. We won't talk about the bed, but you have a prototype, some product that she's going to need the copyright. She's going to need the patents
Mm-hmm.
and the copyright or patents and
Sure.
legal and financial. You work with the person on that just to get all of that information together in an orderly fashion so they can come up for
Absolutely.
an SBA loan.
Absolutely. In this particular case in Orange County, we have an individual volunteer that's an expert on patents.
See,
We have attorneys that actually do workshops on legal structure, whether you want to be an S corp or an LLC or a C corp, or maybe run it simply as a sole proprietorship or a partnership. We have people that will help a business owner or an individual that aspires to be a business owner prepare themselves to apply for funding. We have people that will help them write a business plan. We'll have people that will talk to them about the research necessary before they even start writing a business plan. There are 6 questions that a business owner needs to ask themselves.
when you sent me,
Before,
yeah,
well, the 6 questions, when people come to me, for example, for help, and I talk with them, and I try to focus on helping folks with facility leasing, because that's what I did in my second career, so that was the most recent experience that I can share with people.
but sales, your first career, everybody
Sure.
needs sales. I mean, sales, somebody to train them in sales.
Yes, yeah. When I meet with people, though, or I do public speaking engagements, I will ask folks about, have you written a business plan? And I've even asked folks at speaking engagements, do you feel that writing a business plan is the first step? And many people feel it is, but it's really not. It's step 2. The first step is market research. I tell people when I'm sitting with them one-on-one, there are 6 questions that they need to be able to answer. And those 6 questions will lead perhaps to other questions. But the questions are, who's my customer? How am I going to reach that customer? Who am I competing with? Why would that prospective customer pick me, my product or my service, over my competitors? What would that prospective customer be willing to pay for my product or service? And the most important one, Marlene, can I make any money selling it at that price?
Exactly, yeah.
Now, the answers to those questions are found through market research. And that takes time and effort. And some people, unfortunately, will shortcut that process and go right to writing a business plan. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the business plan then is filled with nothing but guesstimates and estimates. And when you present a business plan to a funding source, if you need funding, okay? The person reviewing that business plan can see through it, can see that it's guesstimates and estimates. They're about to make a decision on whether or not to lend you money,
Right.
and whether or not they're going to get, if it's a 5-year loan, they're going to get 60 uninterrupted payments
Exactly.
from you. But if if they're basing that decision on your guesstimates and estimates, how enthusiastic are they going to be about lending money to you? So starting a business begins with market research,
Right.
then to a well-written business plan, which is a combination of two things. It's a roadmap that would help you get from point A to point C or D. It's also, by the way, a way of holding yourself responsible.
Exactly.
The second thing it is a marketing tool, essentially. And people have asked me, well, what do you mean by a marketing tool?
You're clear.
Well, you're using the business plan to sell
Exactly. You're
your
clear.
vision for this new business to whoever it is you're presenting it to.
Do you ask them? That's, which is very important. I think that's very important. But do you sit down with the client ahead of time and say, when they're talking about this business, say they come up with a certain business, do you ask them if they have the skills and talents to run that business? I mean, this may sound like a dumb question, but sometimes people get into businesses where they don't have the skills and talents. Do you
Yeah.
work with them? I mean, does that come up a lot? Or are they clearer by the time they come in with, no, I don't know if they're clearer.
Well, first of all, it's a great question.
Because it's what we do it's what I do, I've done 400 shows here. So it's usually the passion. That's the thing that when I want somebody on the show, I want them because they like what they do. And it's good to know that maybe you don't have the skills and aptitudes to handle it. You may be good in this business, but you're not going to be good in that business.
Well, it brings two things to mind.
Okay, this.
The first thing is that there are people that will start a business that is very dependent on sales, but they themselves don't like to sell.
Right, right. I know.
So there's challenge number one. Then there are businesses that are successful initially, that maybe even grow like crazy for the first 4 or 5 years, but they reach a point at which the staffing level, their need for people has risen, and now they're more dependent on other people to get things done, but they themselves are not good with people. Their management skills or people skills are lacking, and the business will plateau. And then as the owner becomes more concerned and maybe even a little panicked that things are plateaued or maybe they're starting to go the other way, he or she becomes more difficult to work with, and it just perpetuates the slide. So the important thing is understanding what your strong suits are and where you're weak, being able to look yourself in the mirror and make that decision, and then to bring people in that will make up for what you yourself lack.
That's the key. That's what, when people are on the show, and the ones who are really very clear, they know how good they are all the way across on everything. And they know where they don't want to do something. If they don't like accounting, why are they doing accounting?
Right.
Where sometimes another business person will say, well, I'm going to learn accounting, and he's going to drag his feet to do the accounting. It's not going to be done as well as somebody who comes in and knows the accounting and can knock it off real fast.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I agree.
and that stuff stays in your head. That I have to do the accounting, but I really don't want to do the accounting, so you'll do something else but the accounting. You're on that little spinning wheel. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah, no, and that's a very, very common problem.
And do you tell when you talk to people, are you real honest that maybe you don't have the talent to do this, but you may have a talent in a different direction, or that's not your job?
Well, no, I think it is our job in a sense.
Okay.
But people have, certainly those who aspire to be business owners, are generally pursuing, as you mentioned, a passion. This is their dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I think personally the worst thing I could do is rain on somebody's dream.
Right.
So one of the things that I try to do, and I think all of our SCORE volunteers try to do, is through a discussion of market research, help the business owner understand what it's going to take and what's necessary to get this business up and running and for it to be successful. And during that research, by asking certain questions during these interviews, these client sessions that we conduct, by asking certain questions and urging the client to seek out the answers to those questions, hopefully they will recognize that this perhaps is an idea that will work. Now let me give you an example. Let's say I was going to open a coffee shop, and I'm going to open it in a small downtown area, and there are 7 other coffee shops or 5 other coffee shops there. One of the questions you're asking the prospective business owner, what's going to set you apart from the other coffee shop? What's going to make you different? Why would people stop going to the coffee shop that they've gone to for quite a while and start coming to your shop? And I've heard people say, well, I'll give better service. Well, everybody says that. And nobody's going to know that you give better service until they've left the other coffee shop and they're now at your place of business, right?
Right, exactly.
The second thing is they'll say, well, I'll offer better prices. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to start undercutting the competition? Because what's going to happen is your margin is going to get squeezed. Your overhead's going to be similar to what theirs is.
Yeah.
But if you're selling stuff for less, there's less profit in it. So, I mean, if you were Walmart and you could buy things at very low prices and mark them up and still be competitive, okay, maybe that works.
But the small business owner can't
Business owner can't do that. What a small business owner is really trying to do is sell the benefit or sell a benefit that's different in terms of what the competition is selling. People buy benefit. And the extent to which the benefit that you're selling meets the wants or needs of a prospective customer, that determines value. And value equates to price. So think of it this way. If I'm out shopping for something that has to do ABC, and you're offering me a product that does ABC and then D and E, something above and beyond what I anticipated, okay, I might think, oh, this is for me. If I need ABC and your product only provides benefit A and B, then I may still buy it, but I'm not going to pay a premium price for it. I'm making a compromise, accepting something that's less than what I really wanted.
Right.
And so I'm going to expect you to cut that price in an effort to motivate me to buy it. So if you exceed your prospective customer's expectation, there's no reason why you have to cut your price. The reality is that you may even be able to charge a premium. And in establishing this relationship with that customer, you're also building on the potential for a long-term successful business. Now, you've got to continue to innovate. Right. I like to tell the story about, there are 2 kinds of innovation. There is incremental innovation and disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation might be, well, online movies, getting movies online, versus going down to the DVD store, right? Okay, there. What happened with Blockbuster and Netflix and all of that's history, and I would call that disruptive innovation. Incremental innovation, if you look back on the history of razor blades, I used to shave with a razor that had 2 blades.
Right.
My wife shaves with a razor that has 5 blades. That's incremental innovation. And each time they came out with additional blades, they touted it as being a smoother shave and and so on and so forth. So a business owner that starts off, and this is the benefit that I'm providing to my client, that's going to work for a period of time, but at some point or another, competition's going to catch up. So you have to be continually looking for new ideas, innovate, building on what you currently have, or branching off in different directions to make yourself more appealing. When you go to the store today and you buy toothpaste, right?
I'm overwhelmed at the
How many flavors are there? Why do you think?
I'm overwhelmed with the soaps and the toothpaste.
Absolutely.
And then
But
if someone sends you down, I know for me it's overwhelmed. But then they say, well, buy me, just a tube of toothpaste. I have no idea what they want in that tube of toothpaste, right?
Well, each one of those flavors has a following. If they weren't selling a whole bunch of mint flavored and bubblegum flavored or whatever, they discontinue that particular line.
Yeah.
So they're continually innovating, reaching out to new customers, trying to appeal to customers' taste, but they don't want to lose their established clients, their existing client base. So they've continued to build on it. And when you go to I remember not too awful long ago, I was using this as an example in a presentation I was making. So I just took a minute and I counted the flavors. I was in a Target store and I counted the flavors of toothpaste. And between two manufacturers, the two primary manufacturers, there were 17 flavors.
That's a lot.
Although when I say flavors, that include whiteners and brighteners and put the porcelain back on your teeth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, and they keep their main brand. Like all good ice cream companies always have vanilla and chocolate. They'll never get
Sure.
rid of vanilla and chocolate.
Right.
Those are standard, right? That would
That's
be
exactly right.
so they and then they add, and then times change, so they change
Yeah.
the package or whatever. Not that much in the package. Sometimes they may have extra raisins or cranberries or whatever.
I was reading along the same line. I was reading an article in newspaper just a couple of days ago, and they were talking about a store that sold beauty products, and they were talking about how investment companies will decide whether or not they're going to put client money into a particular company. And one of the things that they said, and this is a multi-billion-dollar company. So one of the things that we concentrate on as an investment firm is kind of looking under the hood and determining that the company understands who their core customer is and how to reach that customer. And your core customer is the customer that is going to provide you with the best opportunity for growth. Not necessarily the client that comes in and wants to pay,
Right.
89 cents on the dollar for a
Right.
merchandise that's priced at $1. That's not the customer that you really want to pursue with a lot of vigor. Doesn't mean you write them off, but it certainly is not.
You're not going to make money on them.
No, shouldn't be your core customer.
What about like the service providers versus a product? There's a big difference there too, because the service provider is the brand. It's like the dentist or the doctor or whatever. So is that marketed differently?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This is my personal opinion. I think that sales, effective selling, is selling the benefit that your product or service provides over and above what your competitors are providing. So whether you're selling widgets, razor blades, consulting services, you're trying to set yourself apart from the competition and marketing the benefits that your organization provides. And those benefits in razor blades might be 3 blades or 5 blades compared to 2. In consulting, it might be the experience of your staff.
Or if you're a small entrepreneur, sometimes you're the brand. You're also the brand, plus you're doing the sales and everything else. So you really are the brand.
Well, yes, and the brand is established. Again, this is my view of the world. The brand is established as a result of your successful marketing of the benefits that your product or service provides. And then you build a brand around that over time. Brand is not something that starts from the get-go. And some folks misunderstand and think brand is my logo. Logos, branding is simply recognizing that, this is who we are. So
Right.
when as your company grows and you become more successful, people will become familiar with your brand. But initially you're starting out as an entrepreneur selling a product or a service, and you're selling that by emphasizing the benefit that your product or service provides above and beyond what your competitors are providing. And if you can't differentiate yourself from your competition, or that the benefit or the difference is so minimal that it's easy for the competition to just ratchet it up a notch, and they're playing at the same level that you are, then your chances of long-term success have been greatly reduced. Make sense?
It makes sense, yeah. But sometimes people don't understand what they're doing, and they don't reach out for the help either. That's why. And usually, small entrepreneurs are the ones, I think, who they know who they are, but they don't tell people who they are.
Well, this is why the opportunity to appear on your show was so appealing. The reality is that we don't spend money on marketing. Most of the folks that become acquainted with SCORE become acquainted as a result of a referral from either the SBA or a lending institution or somebody that's taken advantage of SCORE services in the past. And if you stop and think about it, the internet has all but put the business section of the public libraries out of business.
Right.
Most of the public libraries today have turned that space in their physical premises into the children's area or a computer lab or whatever. People used to go to the library to do market research or to add to the market research that they've done.
But sometimes they can't, like where they had the California Manufacturers Directory was a big one, libraries carry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they carry it anymore, but if someone like me, that's like 500, that was like $400 or $500 years ago. I don't need to buy it, I just need to use it.
Right. Well, what's happened is people then have gravitated to the internet. But the internet, just like reading this in a book,
Right.
okay, is not going to help you as much as maybe reading it in a book and then sitting down with somebody who's been there and done that. And SCORE, as I said, we had 115 volunteers in Orange County and maybe 75 or 80 in Los Angeles and 50 in the Inland Empire. Gosh, you're talking about almost 200 people that are willing to sit down with you one-on-one and spend an hour talking about whatever opportunity or challenge that you might be dealing with, whether you're an existing business or just hoping to start a business, you're pursuing your dream, and they'll do that for free.
Right.
So participating in a show like yours enables us to tell the world, gosh, we're here. We don't cost anything.
And you're working with millennials. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. How do millennials find you? You said you're working with millennials. They're
Yeah.
different, I know. But
Yeah. Well,
talk about that, because you might as well, I mean, SCORE can get you're retired, and lots of times younger people think, oh, they don't know anything. They're retired. We haven't gone through this life of hard knocks here, right? The school of hard knocks. So that's why I want you to talk about that.
You really raised an interesting point.
Well, it's the
SCORE.
truth. They'll say, well, they're older, but they know. I mean, like my son's 33, and he loves my aunt. She's 92. She's a working accountant. She still works. She loves what she does, so she loves that. And he goes to her for all kinds of financial stuff.
Let me take you back just a little
Okay.
bit. when SCORE was first started, it was actually started by a fellow by the name of Eugene Foley, who was the head of the SBA back in 1963. And there were these various groups, these nonprofit groups throughout the country, 50 of them, that he brought together under this umbrella and began providing educational services to entrepreneurs. This was his idea. And he presented it, I suppose, to Congress, and this is my take on it.
Okay.
Presented it to Congress and said, look, and by the way, this is back in the days when the SBA actually made loans, that if we help these business owners succeed, okay, not only is it good for the economy of the country, but we'll get the taxpayers' dollars back that we've lent to these business owners by helping them over the period of time where they're going to pay these loans back. And so SCORE was formed, and somebody was, I picture this, they're sitting around a conference table, and somebody said, well, what do we call this group? Well, let's call it the Service Corps of Retired Executives, SCORE. And that stuck. So it was the Service Corps of Retired Executives. Well, over time, the SBA, of course, stopped making loans and began just guaranteeing loans, but we continued, the Congress kept funding through the SBA, SCORE's efforts, and SCORE continued to grow and expand because of our contribution that we were making to the economy of the country, to the small business owners. So somewhere along the line, the decision was made, we're creating the impression with that name that we're a bunch of
I know.
older folks that are retired, and
Right.
gosh sakes, if you've been retired a fair amount of time, you're probably, quote, out of touch.
Yeah, okay, that's
So why would I?
that's why I wanted to discuss it.
And so we shed that. We're just SCORE. We've done away. And beneath the logo it said Counselors to America's Small Business. Now it says beneath the logo, for the life of your business.
That's a better.
And
that's
the
better.
idea is that we're here when you've got a dream of entrepreneurship, passion to start a business, and then we're here for you after you get the business up and going, and we're here for you when you're struggling with that business. And now you've reached a point where you're ready to hang it up and go off to the mountains or the beach and retire, sell your business. We're here to help you with that as well, for the life of your business. Now, our experience, and we've gotten very involved with the colleges and universities in Orange County and frankly up here in the East St. Gabriel Valley. We're active on the campuses at Azusa Pacific, University of Laverne, Cal Poly Pomona. So it's an opportunity, an outreach effort on our part to reach out, to make contact with the millennial generation, and they would like their information presented in a little different fashion. The fact that we meet with people for an hour and we share with them what we know on that particular topic, that subject, and we're there available if they need us again, seems to work because they like this information kind of compact and presented in that manner. And so as we do more with the schools, and we participate in certain organizational events, chamber events and business association events, and it gives us an opportunity to talk to the next generation, if you will, of business owners, and explain who we are. Now, one of the things that they all like is the fact that we're free.
Right.
The other thing that they like is that we're convenient and we're willing to not only meet at all of the various satellite offices that we have. Orange County has 18 satellites, East St. Gabriel Valley has 7, Los Angeles and Inland Empire have a large number as well. So we've got plenty of places to meet with anybody, whether it's a millennial or somebody getting ready to retire. And most of us, a lot of us maybe I should say, are willing to meet with folks at a Starbucks or at a coffee shop of some sort. So this willingness, this desire on our part, they're passionate about starting their business, we're passionate about helping them, and as soon as they recognize that, they're like a sponge. If you show that you're interested in them and in their business, they'll take advantage of these services. And so we're pleased with the progress that we're making in terms of reaching the next generation of entrepreneurs.
What kind of business are they looking for, the millennials?
I think, frankly, it's all over the page, Marlene.
It is.
I met a young man that was starting kind of like an ice cream shop. We met people that had a new app that they were creating, and so technology related. We've met small business owners that were getting themselves ready to take over their uncle's business or their parents' business. I mean, it's literally all over the map. There was a great article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days back, or maybe it was 2 weeks back, and it was written by a Harvard professor. And what he talked about was that he believes that the colleges should begin preparing the millennials not only to start businesses, because the dream is, I want to start this new business that's going to change the world, right? Well, not everybody's going to change the world. But what's wrong with going and reaching out and getting engaged with a printing business or a machine shop or a restaurant that could use his or her expertise and eventually provides an opportunity for that millennial to take over that business at some point in the future. So if I were a business owner and I didn't have family that I wanted to turn the business over to, maybe the best course of action for me would be to recruit one of these MBA students from one of the local universities that might have an interest in what I do for a living and train he or she to eventually take over this business, to buy this business from me. And I think the Harvard professor, if I understood the article correctly, is suggesting this is a pathway to entrepreneurship for some of the MBA students that aren't necessarily prepared to develop some new technology that's going to change the world.
So you're really getting, what you're saying is you're being very practical with everything. I mean, if the high-tech person comes in, that you're right there. And if someone needs just a basic business, you're right there.
Correct. And actually, I'll carry that, or maybe a better way to say this would be, I'll explain why. 20% in Orange County, probably 20% of our volunteers are still working.
Okay.
And as a result, they're 30, 40,
Right.
45 years old. Whereas there's a goodly number that are my age.
Yeah.
So now we've got volunteers that are currently working in a certain field. They're close in age to the millennial that would come to us for help. They've grown up in an era of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Yeah. Whereas when I was in business, there was no such thing. There was, there was email, but that was about it. So now if somebody comes in and says, this is my business, and I'm curious as to whether or not I should begin marketing my services on Facebook, chances are we have somebody that can answer that question from a real life experience base, whereas I can't.
Right.
So what happens is when a person comes to SCORE for help, what we try to do is match the information they're looking for, the need that they have, with a volunteer that has the appropriate experience and skill to help the client deal with that. Now, another way of saying that is if you owned a shoe store and you said, well, I want to talk to somebody that's owned a shoe store. I'm struggling. My sales aren't where they ought to be. So I want to talk to somebody that's had a shoe store about marketing. I may or may not have somebody that's owned a shoe store. But marketing, again, is selling the benefit of your product or service and showing how you're different, how you're better than your competition. And so what we will do then is match that shoe store owner up with somebody who has a lot of experience, successful experience in marketing.
Good. That's good. I think I wanted you to come on because I wanted people to understand if they want to be entrepreneurs, or some people retire at 50 and they don't, At 50, you don't want to be retired lots of times. You really don't. You want something. You may not want the whole world, but you want something. You know, I think as you get older, it's about leaving a legacy. And so you can start a business leaving a legacy that's important to you.
Well, I think that eventually, and this is kind of my appeal for other volunteers.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up, so you can.
Okay, here's my appeal.
Go through your
I
appeal.
think that people that volunteer for SCORE are in fact doing it. Some of them are doing it because they want to give back. But if you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, gosh sakes, I have something to contribute. Maybe you weren't a business owner. Maybe you just work for a large corporation and you become really good at what it is that you've done, what it is that you were doing. And after you've retired, you're wrestling with the same decision I was wrestling with, you know, mow the lawn or play golf. There's got to be more to life than that. I think most folks that have retired and they've been retired 6 months, a year, 2 years, if they really think about it, that giving back, helping others by becoming a SCORE volunteer, whether it's a half day a week or a half day every other week or half day a month, there's a tremendous amount of satisfaction that you get from doing this. When you see the look in that entrepreneur's eyes, that they understand and realize, gosh sakes, that was the answer that I was looking for. Mm-hmm. You're helping to change people's lives.
I know.
That's exciting. And
I think
it's
so.
an opportunity.
So why don't you look at the camera, and say your name and how they can reach SCORE.
Well, probably the easiest way, since I'm really talking on behalf of 4 SCORE chapters, would be to simply call our East San Gabriel Valley chapter, which the telephone number for the chapter is 626-593-1120. And my name is Dennis Wright, or you can ask for Bill Moreland, our regional vice president, either one of us, and we'll make sure that we connect you with the chapter closest to where you live and or where you work, and make it easy for you to become a SCORE volunteer.
Okay. Or a SCORE person who was looking for business information too.
Absolutely. We do not have too many clients. So call, take advantage. It doesn't cost anything, and you might be surprised
Repeat the
at
number.
how much information.
Repeat the number.
626-593-1120. Thanks,
you.
Marlene.
Thanks, Dennis.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be
I
here.
had fun. I had fun with you. This is Marlene Gibb with What Do You Do?
This program is brought to you by P. Murphy and Associates, successfully providing IT professionals to Southern California businesses.